Today, I'm testing out Dehancer, a film emulation plugin that doesn't just slap on grain, it captures the full analog process, halation, bloom, color profiles, and even movie-grade film stocks. But here's the catch, I am not a professional colorist at all. In fact, I had never even touched a logarithmic profile until last weekend when I traveled to the Rocky Mountains. And the video I edited from there was my very first time using both DaVinci Resolve and Dehancer. So this is a beginner's perspective, a very honest review from someone just diving into the world of cinematic color. If you're wondering what this plugin can do straight out of the box without years of grading experience, you're in the right place. And just for transparency, this video isn't sponsored. Dehancer did, however, provide me with a plugin to test, but have no creative input and won't see this video before it goes live. If you do want to check out the software, I've got a discount code FRIZZY at checkout for 10% off. Alright, we're going to break down some of the clips I filmed in last week's video, Rocky Mountains. If you haven't seen the full version yet, feel free to check that out and come right back, but for now, we're diving into a few of the key shots from it, as well as some of the outtakes. I tease you with it in the intro, but we will start out with this clip of a very introspective young man stepping into frame and looking away. You can see as we are progressing through the stages that Dehancer came in very clutch here in order to demonstrate that blue hour feel. Hopping over to DaVinci Resolve, let's run through my nodes and the color grading tab. We don't quite have a node tree, more like a node bush with just 7 total layers. As we toggle them on, pay attention to the changes on the left. We have our white balance adjustment, curves and levels, our S-Log3 to Rec 709 conversion, a sky qualifier to add more blue, an overall blue tint adjustment, and then our coveted Dehancer node, which makes the whole picture come together. It's a pretty dramatic shift once the Dehancer node is added, so I've disabled all of its settings to walk through them one by one. The first setting we'll look at is Dehancer's most well-known feature, film stock. They've built an extensive library that emulates just about every major film stock you can think of, Fuji, Kodak, Polaroid, and more. If you already have a favorite, it makes dialing that look a whole lot easier. In my case, I went with cineStill 50D, known for its cooler blue tone look, and the second I applied it, the entire shot completely transformed. Another really important setting Dehancer does right is the versatility of film grain. You get a ton of presets based on different formats and film speeds, and if that's not enough, there's even a custom option to dial in your own look. For this clip, I went with a 65mm grain at 50 ISO, and once again, it gave that shot the polished, filmic texture without overdoing it too much. After spending time color grading with Dehancer, I found these two settings, film stock and grain, to be the most important when dialing in a specific look. However, to finish off this shot, here's a quick rundown of the other Dehancer settings I had turned on to complete the grade. I had expand enabled, and I also turned on linear print. I added a good amount of bloom to soften things up, then cranked the film damage to the max for a 35mm look, and did the same thing with film breath to give it a little extra movement and imperfection. We now have our Dehancer clip fully charged up and ready to roll out, so here is the before and the after. Now, I haven't even mentioned one of Dehancer's most impressive tools, halation. If you've ever shot real film, especially cineStill 800T, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That reddish glow around the highlights that just screams, this was shot on film. This clip didn't make the cut of the project last week, but I did love how the halation was working, as you can see when our Dehancer node is activated. We are going to skip the color grading process and just jump straight to our Dehancer node. You can see that I have the 8mm Super 8 film set on about medium strength. When toggling on and off, you can see the red highlights disappear from the shot. So what's happening here is actually a real film phenomenon. When you shoot on film, the brightest parts of the image, like highlights, can bleed into the surrounding areas. That glow is called halation, and while it can show up in a few different colors, it usually appears as a warm red or orange halo around those hotspots. You can see when I click on the different preset option for halation, there are options for no remjet layers. Once selected, the halation amplifies significantly. Now, remjet is a protective coating found on motion picture film like Kodak Vision 3, and its job is to block light from bouncing back through the film base, which essentially reduces halation. So when you select the no remjet option in Dehancer, you're mimicking film stocks like cineStill, where that layer is completely removed, and you'll see the halation glow ramp up significantly, just like it does when you're shooting real life film. This image is clearly heavily affected by the halation, but if you're trying to use it more subtly, Dehancer gives you a masking option. It lets you isolate the halation so you can see exactly where it's being applied and how it's affecting the image. That was a lot of technical detail, but the bottom line is simple. Halation Hellation adds a soft red glow and it makes your footage feel more like film. To show you, here are a couple more clips comparing Dehancer with and without Hellation turned on. Hellation's cool and all, same with everything else we've covered, but if you're anything like me, when you're sitting through one of these Dehancer tutorials, there's still one question burning in the back of your brain. How does black and white look? I have always loved working in black and white, whether it's photo or video, and Dehancer actually gives you 8 different black and white film stocks to choose from. When you stack them all next to each other, the differences are subtle. However, when working with them, my go-tos are Ilford HP5 plus 400 speed and Kodak plus Xpan 125 speed. But honestly, you can't really go wrong with any of them. For this clip, I went with Ilford HP5 plus 400, so let's hop back into DaVinci Resolve and break down the whole process. Though we aren't chasing dramatic color, let me quickly walk you through my node tree I used to achieve this look. We started with a white balance adjustment, lifted the shadows in the foreground, an overall levels adjustment, our S-log conversion, a blue sky qualifier, added a bit more green to the trees and some purple tint, and then our holy grail, our Dehancer node. Looking closer at the effects, we've got our HP5 plus film stock enabled, and I also went a little heavier on the film grain here. I'm using the 8mm 250 preset sitting around the halfway mark, but when you spike it all the way up, you'll see just how much texture that grain adds to the image. I love that level of intensity, just not for this project, so we stuck with the original midway grain setting. I also had halation and bloom turned on, plus a custom setting for film damage. I wanted this shot to feel gritty and textured, but when you go too hard on the presets, it can start to feel a little bit corny. So I just about maxed everything out except for the scratches. You gotta draw the line somewhere. I then maxed out film breadth and gate weave to close it all up. When you stack all those settings together, you end up with black and white footage that looks like this. Clean, textured, and full of character. Okay, I've basically been singing the praises of Dehancer for the past few minutes. It's obvious. I really like this software, but let's cool it with the love fest and talk some real talk. Because just like every video on this plugin, we always land on the same phrase. Yeah, it's super dope, great, awesome, but the price. And look, it's expensive, but so is that lens you swore would change your work forever and now just gathers dust. If Dehancer makes your life easier and your footage better, maybe it's not about the price, maybe it's about how much you'll actually use it. For me, I'm trying to dive deeper into travel videos, document more of my life, and build out more of a cinematography bag, and Dehancer fits right into all of that. Now, I'll admit, I'm probably on the reckless end of the spectrum when it comes to creative spending, but if you know you'll use it consistently, I think Dehancer is a very smart investment into your content journey. Plus, if you're gonna drop the cash anyways, at least use my discount code FRIZZY, you're basically getting free money back. But seriously, I do have one last gripe, and to be fair, this might be more of a DaVinci Resolve limitation than Dehancer's fault, but in Photoshop, when you're cycling through blend modes, you can just arrow down and instantly preview each one. Super efficient. I wish so badly that you could do the same thing with the Dehancer film stock library. Instead of clicking on each one, it'd be a game changer if you could just throw them all together into a preview in real time. That would be pretty cool. This plugin is great. If you have the money and the means to use it, it's truly a no-brainer. The link to grab it is right at the top of the description below, and don't forget to use code FRIZZY at checkout for 10% off and to support the channel. Dehancer also offers photo editing software and a mobile app. I've still got a few men's basketball games left to wrap up on top of wedding photos, so let me know if you'd like to see a follow-up using Dehancer on stills. Until next time.